Welcome to another episode of the Cheesewright Building with Ginny and Avital. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I think we're going to talk about the haunted Cheesewright Studios building.
We're going to talk about ghosts.
That building is loaded with ghosts.
Nice. All right. So, well, have you seen any ghosts there?
Well, I did. I actually did see a ghost, and I'm super skeptical. When people talk about ghosts, I roll my eyes. I think, oh, they must be some trick of the light, or you almost couldn't find a person more skeptical about a physical thing you can see that's a ghost. I'm skeptical, but the building has always been rumored to be haunted, and my first ghost experience in the building was I heard ghosts. I had moved into the building, was already working downstairs, and it was late at night, like after 2 a.m., and I heard banging downstairs in the grand room, like they were moving furniture out. And I was like, what the hell? It was loud, bang, 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 and furniture and moving. So I stood up, and the banging stopped instantly. And so I said, oh wow, this must be, some of the ghosts I'd heard about in the building. But at that point, I had been given keys to the restaurant because I was opening up in the morning. I said, well, just in case, there's some thief down there, I should go down and check it out. So I went down, and the way I go in is through the VIP room into the office. So I opened the door of the VIP room, I walked through it, I opened the door of the office, and there's a door from the office that leads to the kitchen, which is the rest of the restaurant, and that door was shaking like there was a heavy wind behind that door. That door was being shaken off the hinges.
Whoa.
It was like, and there is no wind source in front of that door. That door is in front of a storage area with no door, with no window, with no wind tunnel.
Yeah, there's no windows on the other side that can be opened.
Yeah, nothing. And that door was shaking, like it was almost literally bending in.
Whoa.
And I was like, wow. Wow. So I immediately turned around and went back upstairs.
You didn't go through the door.
There's no way I was going to open that door. I was terrified.
Yeah.
Because it was shaking so bad that I could see it almost pushing in. Yeah.
What do you think it was like?
Well, then soon after that experience, I had a dream, a very powerful dream about the tunnel. We have a tunnel in our building, which have we talked about the tunnel?
No, we're saving that. We're saving that for last. But sure, go ahead, bring it up. Let's talk a little bit about the tunnel.
Well, because I think a lot of the ghosts are connected to that tunnel. We have a tunnel in our building connecting us with Caltech that was dug in the early 30s for Albert Einstein himself to have a secret lab in our basement. We have a huge basement that spans the breadth of the whole building, and there is a tunnel that they dug when it became a military building connected with the Navy between our building and Caltech to have a secret lab in the basement.
And I've been unable to see the basement personally.
I could probably get you down there now. Yeah,
that would be cool.
Because I noticed they're leaving one of the doors open more because they're storing some gardening tools down there.
Oh, cool.
So I
actually
snuck down the other night when I saw it open. Whenever I see it open, I sneak down because I'm so curious about that basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a whole basement underneath. There is that tunnel, and that tunnel is quite long.
It's over a mile.
And so you had some kind of experience.
I had a dream shortly after that experience that I heard in the tunnel coming from way back deep in the tunnel, like a cadence of soldiers, like an army, an old army. They were marching and they were chanting.
What were they chanting?
It was some kind of chant, like over and over again.
No discernible words.
No words. It's more like a singing.
And this is
nothing I never knew about, I never heard about, but later I looked it up, and I guess armies did do cadence chanting.
Wow.
And I personally had never seen that in a movie. There's no way I could have known about it because I'd never heard of the phenomena until my dream, but I heard it, and it went on for a long time, and it kept coming closer. And it was a big army, and I heard them marching through that tunnel with the cadence growing louder and louder and louder and louder.
And then you woke up?
No, I didn't wake up yet. They came out of the tunnel, which would lead them, this army, dressed in very ancient uniforms. They went through the kitchen and through the front and through the restaurant, across the front court, out on the street in a file, still doing the cadence, and then they started to go up into the air. The whole army, yeah, like in a file, up into the air, into the trees, yeah. That was one of the most intense dreams I've ever had.
Yeah, I'm surprised like you didn't wake yourself up as they were nearing.
I finally did when they were when there was enough of them had filed out, but I was able to see the whole hear the procession in the tunnel, watch them come out, watch them file through the restaurant and down the hall, out the door and up into the trees.
Wow.
And that was a dream right after I'd seen that
banging door
shaking and the banging in the grand room.
Wow.
So that was a pretty ghost-like experience that I had.
I have no ghost experiences. I believe in other people's experiences, but I have never experienced anything.
Yeah, I hadn't either. And then I saw another ghost one night. I got up. Someone was locked out who works at the restaurant, and they had texted me to let them in because they wanted to come in. It was the son of the owners. He wanted to bring his friends in. So I went down to open. I was heading down the hall to open the front door, and I saw a ghost. I saw a man walking in the hall toward me, and he saw me, and what he did is he turned around and he blended right into the wall. And I was like looking at him, and my mind was saying, I saw you. You can't hide from me. Because he was freezing, then half blended into the wall. And I was like, I saw you. I did see you. So.
Was it Cheesewright?
Who was it? It could have been. I don't know. It could have been him. Could have been one of his drafts people back on the second floor.
Yeah, probably not Cheesewright because he didn't die. He died at the bungalow, not there.
Well, there is a woman there, speaking of other people who've seen ghosts, because I've heard countless stories of people talking to me about having seen ghosts in the building. And she was one of them. We had a wine and paint for a while with Linda,
Nice.
A painter, and she said Cheesewright's ghost was there, and that she had seen him, and she had seen him in what he was wearing, and she had seen him there a few times. So I think if he was going to go anywhere, he'd be there.
Yeah, I mean, if I was him, I would be so proud of that building, and I would want to kind of hang out there. I wouldn't want to be at the Doheny one because of the awfulness that happened there.
Well, the poor guy too. I mean, I always am reminded. I've been in that building a lot longer than he was. I mean, the Depression came so fast.
Whoa, that's such a
It was
trip.
founded in 1927. It really wasn't finished till 29. Same year the Depression hit. That Star News article that I found on the microfilm that gave us so much information, that was February of 1929. The October 29 is when all the Depression hit.
That's when like the market crashed and all of that.
Yeah. So this dream, this huge dream, this super ambitious project, this beautiful project, with years in the planning, and it all came crashing down very, very quickly.
So he didn't even really get to enjoy that creation.
No, he really didn't.
Yeah, so maybe he's still hanging out because he's like, at least this way I get to enjoy this masterpiece.
Yeah, and it would, they say ghosts kind of linger where there's something unresolved, or at least that's the impression I've always gotten of ghosts. And certainly he had unresolved issues, just the pain of having lost his life's work. You know.
So you I know that through your meeting people at the studios building, as well as people through the Madeline Cafe, right? You hear other people's stories.
Yeah, because there's people. I think I mentioned it on our last episode. a man came in for a birthday party there, and he said he had been there when there was the previous owners. There was a club there, and he was in the men's room, and outside he heard children crying and running.
Oh, God.
And then after that, one of the cooks told me, a pastry chef who has been there since the beginning, they were in the restaurant. This is when their apartments upstairs weren't done, and it was completely vacant up there, completely vacant, and they would hear footsteps a lot upstairs. He saw a man ghost and a woman ghost when he was there alone walking down the hall, and he heard children running and crying upstairs. So when you think about that, you think about if it's possibly connected to that nuclear history.
Mm-hmm. With the soldiers kind of using those apartments as barracks, or like little apartments for their families, I guess, or...
Well, no, the soldiers didn't really use it for that. It was a Manhattan Project development building for 15 years. And I think since the early 30s, which was very early, it was heavily involved in that arms race.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and that's sort of like the crux. That's the crux of sort of the story, and what we've been kind of hinting at all these episodes, is that this building became a Manhattan Project building.
It's the birthplace of the bomb.
Where scientists were working. And this is the information that when I first met you just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because how do we not, as a city of LA, as a city of Pasadena, like how is this not common knowledge?
They're so avid to hide that history, and that's what happened to Cheesewright. They literally wiped the man's existence off the books. They went far. They went into the computer. They went into everything except the microfilm, and just erased it. That tunnel is still not in, I think the documents were either burned or shredded. They don't want to talk about it, about that building's importance.
My only concern is and that makes sense to me, but why would they erase the person that built, it had nothing to do.
It was such an important building, and what they were doing there was intelligence. It was, I met a guy at the Chamber of Commerce. When I first started working in the restaurant, they were sending me to these Chamber of Commerce breakfasts to try to, drum up business. And this guy told me immediately, said my aunt was recruited to run the OSS in that building.
Whoa.
I'm like, what? The OSS? You remember, that's pre-CIA.
Mm-hmm.
That's pre-public knowledge. That's public money being used without authorization of Congress. It was a big, important military intelligence building. And they're just, the reason I'm sure it was a strategy to take Cheesewright out of the picture, because if he was known about, if anyone wanted to know about him, if anyone wanted to know about his building, they'd start poking around that building. It would
lead to that.
And they didn't want that to happen, because I think I've mentioned they not only took over his offices, they took over his workshops. And he had a state-of-the-art wrought iron shop. He had a state-of-the-art wood shop. And he probably had all the latest tools you could possibly have.
And they used that
for research
purposes.
No, they built bomb parts.
Yeah. I'm calling it research. I'm not euphemizing it. You're like, no, they're building bombs. Stop saying anything else.
Well, and it's a residential neighborhood. So that's that's not exactly a place you'd want to be targeted.
Yeah, it's not like New Mexico desert kind of a...
So it was just a huge, important for the military, ambitious project. It involved a lot of secrecy. And someone was reminding me that Manhattan Project, remember, they were broken, those Rosencrantz, what was it, Ethel and
the Rosenbergs.
They were killed.
Yeah.
But for giving away Manhattan Project secrets to the Russians.
Right.
So they were very, very afraid of spies. And,
Sure.
And,
right.
Tunnel,
I mean, I can definitely understand the motivation, but it's it's the year 2020 essentially.
Yeah.
Can we release some of that information now? apparently the answer is no, because you and I have been searching and we're not.
No, they don't want to release it. They don't want to talk about it. I wonder if Einstein, he was such a very powerful anti-nuclear advocate. His ghost, by the way, is rumored to be there too. So we have famous ghosts.
Has anybody that you've talked to seen or
Somebody,
thought
yeah,
they'd
one
seen?
guy said they did see Einstein there out in the atrium. As this was the thing with the building is, especially when I was first starting there, it always had been cloaked in secrecy, but there were people that had, through word of mouth, passed down rumors about what happened in that building. And they would just kind of be drawn there to talk about what they'd heard or seen, because there was no place else to talk about it. There was no place else, and they just had this. They wanted to, release their conscience or whatever, release what they had heard. So one of those people,
You don't remember who?
said that they had seen him on that atrium.
Was it a resident?
No,
or?
it was just some guy who turned up one day. The residents, apparently, the owner before our owner was Japanese owners, and they ran a youth hostel upstairs for Japanese tourists, which is ironic with the bomb development and the Japanese.
Sure.
And I recently learned, because I was looking up tenants who were there when they were there asking ghost stories, and they said the owners lived in the basement, which was so strange to me as a choice.
Totally.
And unfortunately, the husband died. The wife is still alive somewhere, but I would very much like to talk to her if she saw some ghosts being in that basement too.
No way she didn't, right? Unless she's like me and just like doesn't recognize. It's not.
It was another tragedy. Her husband and son died in that building. Her son was 26, living upstairs. He died.
What happened?
He had a diabetic reaction, and no one, so he lived alone, and just no one came to his rescue. And
her husband?
Yeah, and her husband. So you just always have this looming,
The kind of death and very dark.
Yeah, but I would very much like to talk to her about them living in that basement, because that's
maybe
pretty
we
intense.
can try and
I would
get
like
her.
to try, find her. And there is a part of that basement, I've been down there poking around. Everyone always says, oh, is there a lab down there? No, of course, that was many years torn down. But there is part of it that the whole building has beam construction, like you see in the grand room, with those beautiful wood beams. So does the basement. The building's built like that. And there's one part of the basement that has sandbags, all in that ceiling. I said, oh, there's the lab. There's the secret lab.
I saw you showed me a picture of that. Very
what's always so interesting to me, the minute I heard this history, I was like, oh, so interesting. Wow. Other people aren't like that. They're like, but I'm like, I see that basement door open. I run down there.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's the lab? I just have this curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think there's just different types of people. Some people have this intense curiosity, and others just filter everything through their own experience,
True.
But I would think, to me, I'm like, wow.
But I feel like particularly in this, in our area, there's a lot of hidden stories. There's a lot of hidden history that either gets buried, like in this case, or that got forgotten, or whatever it is. That it's like, this place is amazing.
Yeah. I always tell people, if I was a fiction writer, I couldn't make it up.
Right? Like,
the truth is way stranger than
fiction.
Story. Yeah.
So,
but anyway, so other people have seen ghosts too. We had just recently, we had a cook and another cook who's still with us, and they were moving something into the backstage garden, and a man walked across the stage. They said a tall man in a trench coat. And the cook that had seen the man walking down the hall earlier said he was in a trench coat. So there's another sighting of a ghost. And this one cook's daughter came in one day, see where her dad worked. And he said when she left, she told him the whole time she was in the restaurant, she heard over the soundtrack a crying.
Kids?
Yeah. Well, just a crying.
Didn't know
crying.
What.
Yeah, and I asked her, I said, is she super sensitive? He said, yeah, she's always been very sensitive. And it's the same way. Every now and then a customer will come in, and they'll look up in the air, and they'll say, I feel something here, I feel something here. And I'll ask them, I say, are you always sensitive, to phenomena? They'll say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So people that are tuned in to that kind of paranormal, they feel it.
Like automatically. I remember when Tina and I went in there, and I think we weren't yet chatting with you, but another of the wait staff, and she's like, is this place haunted? And she's always very attuned.
Right.
I mean, she walks into whatever and she'll get her feeling or whatever, but she was immediately like, and she was the one that had tried, and somehow maybe we could still pull it off, who knows, but tried to get ghost hunters or ghost adventures to try and
come on, guys, I know. I reached that lady. I said, you're missing an opportunity of a lifetime.
Right.
But one thing, it'd be neat to have someone like Tina, since I know we can contact her to come. I've always been curious about walking those halls late at night.
She would love
because that was when I saw the ghost, was late at night. And I don't every once in a while, if I come in late, that's when it really starts to feel kind of creepy up there, even
as you walk up the stairs and
those
the hall.
halls. The place is cavernous, as you know, and the ownership for some reason painted it that navy battle gray, and it really does. You don't know what's around the corner, and it'd be interesting.
Definitely. Well, she would love to.
And that's where they heard when they were, because Madeline Garden came in. The building was sold in 2012 to a current. Madeline Garden's not the owner. There's another owner of the building. But the top floors were empty initially for a couple years with nothing going on until the landlords put the apartment in, and they were downstairs, renovating and getting ready, and they said all the time we heard footsteps up there and people dragging things and banging, just like I heard in that grand room. And the cook, who's still there, our pastry chef, said that's what ghosts do, is they bang things around.
So can we talk just a little bit? Can you tell me, to the best of your knowledge, the evolution of the upstairs units?
Well, I guess I had heard recently that the Japanese owners had wanted to put apartments up there, but they were somehow blocked by, the problem with the permits and all. But the latest owners, they got the permits pushed through, and they subdivide. There was always a lot of offices up there and showrooms, which you just died. There's got to be pictures of, again, more research, of those beautiful showrooms. But they subdivided, and now there's 30 apartments upstairs.
So initially, of course, as we've discussed, Cheesewright set it up as showrooms plus his
offices. Yeah, it was always cavernous up there. The building's always much bigger than people realize from the street.
It's that's the part.
It's much wider. It's much deeper.
That's the part that blew my mind.
Realize the size of that thing.
Yeah, the facade is
and that's
deceiving.
Why I tell people, they're all, well, everyone's always talking about the Gamble House, which is wonderful. I've been there. Awesome Gamble House. The Cheesewright Building, Studios Building, is 3 times as large. And it's a more ambitious project.
Yeah, it's
a more ambitious project.
All sorts of things, and it's not just a house.
Yeah, and no one talks about it. In a city that loves architecture, that's known, as one of the only arts and crafts centers of the world. Right. So that's what I mean. It's just
hidden, and it's
a hidden treasure.
But it's hidden for the point I think that you're trying to make is that it's hidden purposefully.
Oh yeah, and that's that military again. And this guy came in one day a few times, and said it did remind him of the buildings the Nazis would take over to, in the German. I guess, there's always been this kind of attraction of beautiful buildings to kind of, militaristic, and I'm not saying the Navy was Nazis, but just, it was beautiful.
The industrial military complex.
It was technically the state of the art. I told you it had the first phone lines in town.
Right.
It had that state of the art workshop, and it had a loading dock. They're just like gold mine, and it was the Depression. They probably got it for nothing. They were So
So at least they
yeah.
saved tax dollars, I guess.
But you know, again, it's just wiping the cheese right off the books was, and the thoroughness of that, you know, it was just that minute I saw his face on that microfilm article I found was like, he's come back,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I don't know if it's a ghost, but one day there was like this light like streaming in the tea room windows, and it was almost like I could hear Cheesewright saying, "Thank you for, you know, remembering my building and bringing it back."
That's so cool.
It was a beautiful, beautiful project he had going there. You know, I tell people that craftsmanship alone is just, you know, astounding.
So
that
what else?
Mural, that visionary
right,
mural.
Of course. So what else? What else in terms of, are there any other ghost stories, or is it just like a lot of, you know, little tidbit stories here and there?
Yeah, it's a lot of tidbit stories here and there. You know, I'm always poking around to hear more, and I always, you know, ask, and if anyone tells me, oh, they were in the building for any length of time, you know, if they heard ghosts, and if they saw a ghost, and what was that experience.
It does feel very cavernous. That would be a definite word that I would use to describe it.
Upstairs especially. Because the whole building, that atrium is the center of the building, so the whole building gravitates around that atrium. And so the word cavernous because it's circular. You're just walking round
plus
and round.
Because you had mentioned that not only are there arches sort of everywhere, but also you had mentioned that the walls they have space in them.
Yeah,
and
hollow.
So there's a lot of air. Almost, it does feel cave-like. It really does. Even upstairs, of course. Once you get over to the kitchen area and all of that, that's a different vibe. But as a person that has not had one ghost experience, it also doesn't surprise me that there are so many.
Right.
Because there's just so many areas that are just creepy and hollow.
Yeah.
And you can almost hear like that.
And
you know, like
that's kind of like that ghost I saw. It's like you could just go into that hollow wall, you know, because you're right, all the walls are hollow.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to kind of have that, you know, sensitivity, but I don't. So I love hearing these stories. Are there any other ghost stories that you wanted to share?
I think I think maybe we might want to think about another episode as I get more information.
Absolutely.
Because I do, like I said, I keep hearing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all, the whole history of the building is very much a word-of-mouth project. And then there's things like, you know, okay, that guy at the chamber says his aunt ran the OSS there. So then at one point we had a chamber luncheon or meet and greet there, but he didn't come. So what happens a lot is like people will tell me something and then they're like, oh my God, I'm not sure I want my relative or whatever implicated. They get scared and they like Dylan, who helped save that mural, had talked about that Pineapple Club. And I'm like, Pineapple Club? There was apparently some Pineapple Club, and they even had a summer camp in Pasadena that made decisions outside of Washington. It was a very powerful political group in Pasadena that, you know, was tied up with the building somehow. And but then, so I started asking him, oh, tell me more about that Pineapple Club. And all of a sudden he's like, I don't want to talk about it.
Wow.
Because then it's like, oh, I might make my grandfather look bad, or, you know, so.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like, that needs to stop.
Yeah, because I think, you know, the building was such an important building, and as we know, the only reason we know it's so important is because of how avid they are to hide the history.
Right.
You know, like I told you how even the admiral couldn't get information on Einstein. The admiral himself, the guy who'd been admiral there from 70 to 83. So they were so anxious to hide this history, it makes you know that it was really important and really secretive.
And what is so sort of frustrating is that they have those placards They have those like
Yeah.
gold-plated
Yeah.
signs
And
that
then you
denote,
look it up. Yeah.
that denote the year and how
Yeah, U.S.
sort of
Naval
proud they
Research
are
Bureau.
that they had the military in this building. And then there's
You
nothing.
look it up online, you don't see that sentence anywhere except in an appendix of a Google book.
Right.
You don't see anything. And so, you know, the internet, that's another, you know.
Yeah, it's a pitfall of misinformation for
Yeah,
sure.
and they can actually scrape it, you know, if there's something they don't want known.
Right. And that's how you know. That's how you know that it's hidden.
Yeah.
Because everything is available online.
Yeah.
And that is not.
Yeah.
But the signs are there.
they are.
They're friggin' screwed to the walls like twice.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean,
it doesn't jive.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of mystery there,
and
I think
I'm sure that there are so many military families that were involved in that building.
Oh yeah.
That now it's their kids and their grandkids, and they're just not talking.
Yeah,
they don't want to talk about it. Maybe they weren't even told about that.
Well, there was a guy one day came in. He said, "I really would like to take," because I do a TN tour of the building. He said, "I'd like to take your tour. My dad worked in this building." I know a TN tour.
Cute.
He said, "My dad worked in this building. I'd like to know." I said, "Oh, how interesting! Your dad worked in this building." And then he was another one that just vanished because all of a sudden he thought, "Wow, that's my dad," and I don't really want, my dad to look bad or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that. I mean, I'm fascinated by that so much, and of course, you are. But I'm hoping that one of the potential result of this podcast would be to get people that know about the building, that have a history with the building, to come out and be like, yeah, we did, and my dad or my mom or my aunt or whatever, had this story here and that story there, and then we can kind of coalesce and get a real understanding of what went on there, because this is a huge part of American history.
It is.
Not just Pasadena, not even just LA County or California.
It's American. And that's why when Dylan said about they made military decisions outside of Washington, I'm like, that just made total sense, because if they're like, building bomb, parts of the atom bomb there, and Einstein in the basement, that was, a center.
When did you first hear about the military occupation of the building?
When I was there early, there was a cook there who took me down to at that time we had total access to the basement. We were storing like onions and potatoes down there. So he took me down there, and there was just a very cheap piece of drywall over the tunnel, and he knocked on it to show me it was hollow.
Oh
and
God.
It was right by the boiler there, and I actually, I was like, oh, this building's so interesting, Pasadena. That's kind of how I am. If I find something interesting, I'm like, oh, we've got to let people know about this. So I posted on a Facebook group about, the Cheesewright Building's super interesting, people. And there was a couple people said, oh, that Einstein tunnel's a myth. That's a myth. That's a myth. I said, no, it's not. But so me and the cook went down there one day, and we just pretty easily pulled off that drywall to see the tunnel, to know it was there, because there were people saying, oh, that Einstein tunnel's a myth. And then I was like, no, it's not a myth. It's there, and I saw it.
Oh
because
my
the
God,
previous,
you saw
I saw it
it.
because the previous owner, there was another restaurant there, and this guy, Claude Beltran, was a pretty famous chef in Pasadena. He used to keep his office down in the basement. And if somebody spent $200 or more for dinner, he would invite them down to look at the tunnel. So that's why it was so easy to remove. He would just, peel it off and be like, here you go. And this woman came in one day with her son, they're all dressed up. He's in a suit. She goes, I would like to see the tunnel. I'm sorry, we can't do that anymore. They locked it up. The minute the landlord, I talked with the landlord because I was the first tenant to move in, and we were pretty friendly, his wife. She runs as the manager of the building. And so I must have mentioned to her about the tunnel and all. They got paranoid. They said, oh, the military doesn't want us, to be involved. The military might get angry at us. They put a second drywall up in front of that tunnel. So you can't even get to it anymore. And I was so mad at them for doing that because, first of all, you know, people are going to want access to that tunnel, especially as the history spreads.
And it's a part.
It's
amazing.
amazing.
It belongs. What the truth is that it actually belongs to us.
Yeah.
Which is the people, because we paid for it, or generations before us rather, paid for it with their tax dollars. So
it's public
land.
And it's past, you know, the time. There's like, what is it, a 40-year limit, and then records go public.
Right, whatever that is.
It's past that time, and the records should be public. And yeah, it's history. That's what I say about the mural, and that's what I say about the tunnel and the building. It's history, and history is a, you know, collective communal thing that belongs to the people.
It's exactly, we're entitled to it.
Yeah, and you know.
So, I mean, I think that we can probably, since we're getting into the nitty gritty of what, you know, really this fascinating component of the show.
Well, there's 50 years that military was there, and that's such a long
amazing
time.
And God knows what they were doing there for 50 years.
I know.
So let's leave it at that. Mm-hmm. Let's close this episode out. A little ghost adventure episode that morphed into a huge. It's really the crux, like what we really want to talk about, we've been hinting at throughout the previous episodes, and what we will 100% talk about in the next and final episodes. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you get more ghost stories, which you will, we could bring them up.
Well, I sure would like to reach that Japanese owner who lived in the basement, and if I can, we can make another episode about. Maybe get her on audio, which is awesome.
We'll talk about that We'll talk about that offline, because I think we should figure a way to do that. All right, so we will wrap us for today. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you guys soon.